It's actually based on this folk tale of the emperor, the great emperor, invited all the animals to come to some party. The order, there's a definite order around the circle of the zodiac, like there is in Western, but it's an animal order, and it's the order in which the animals showed up to the party.
Welcome to Come One, Come All, our weekly live hangout. My name's Hannah Gantz, and I'm here with my twin sister, Marissa Gantz, and our friend, Ashley Norris. We gather weekly on Mondays at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern, to discuss a variety of topics. Sometimes we have guests, and it's all in pursuit of our own kind of personal and spiritual development to grow and to learn and to share these resources to become kind of stronger centers of gravity that can be ripple effects out in the world. So that is what we're about with Come One, Come All. I'm very excited tonight to have a guest, Kathleen Poole, who is going to share with us some detailed information about the Chinese New Year. You know, we're just coming out of the year of the rat and into the year of the ox. And I'm already feeling some shifts in my life. So this is a special time. This is another time that like genuinely feels like a new year as opposed to just the calendar year of January 1st. So, but before we dive into that, how are you guys doing? How's your week? I know, Marissa, that you had a couple of grief circles. How did those go?
They went really well. Yeah, we had one last night on Valentine's Day, just because that can be a hard day for people, whether they've lost someone or are not in a relationship or just grieving past loved ones that have been in their life. So we held a ceremony last night and one on Thursday night. And yeah, it's just a really beautiful space to be in community, something that a lot of cultures gather together to support one another in their grieving processes. So just with COVID and all of our changes and the new not totally taking root, grief is just showing up for people. So it's been a really lovely space to curate with Liz Smith.
Yeah, and I'm super excited to listen to Kathleen explain that transition from the year of the rat to the year of the ox, because I feel like you're saying, there's been a bunch of new years that we've had recently, Hannah, like the age of Aquarius, you know, the actual calendar new year. Now we have the Chinese New Year, and it's like, I get excited with the idea of this, like, okay, you know, I have to let go of trying to control us so much, or like thinking that I have all the influence when really there's a whole like energy and, you know, there's other factors that are impacting the transitions that we're going in life. And so knowing the difference between the year of the ox and the year of the rat might help to make sense of a lot of things that we've been going through lately, and also to give you a little bit of guidance as to how to move forward with the year based on what this year should be bringing to you. So I'm looking forward to learning about that for sure. Taking notes.
Marissa, I don't know if you recall the name of the gentleman who led the Chinese New Year talks. Was that Liao Ming? So he gave like a lecture. He passed away a few years ago, but that was a significant influence in my life during the time that he was doing that. And to listen to that, it was exposure to a whole new perspective and way of thinking.
I've studied a little bit of Jyotish, which is the Vedic astrology. Jyotish, I know, translates as the study of light. So, you know, it's looking at the dynamics that not only the stars give, but also the moon and the constellation of planets and all of those, how they influence us in our everyday life.
And is there a certain type of food that can be prepared to help celebrate Chinese New Year? Because that's what I'm all about, is food. But also, I know that Hannah has a little bit of experience in that.
I have a restaurant operation. So this last week we did the Chinese New Year and had a whole fried fish, and of course noodles, which, you know, symbolize you know, a long life. And there's a lot of luck around Chinese New Year. And I think that some like the fish is associated with that. And it was just a novel offering in our area of southeastern Connecticut. So Cool. Well, enough small chat. Let's bring Kathleen in and get this party really started. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, it's so lovely to have you join us.
Oh yeah, thank you. I've been coming to the Hangout, so it's fun to be here as a guest.
Kathleen has an acupuncture practice in
Yeah,
Groton, Connecticut.
this is my 33rd year of practice, so I've been practicing for a long time. It's been really a wonderful time to go into acupuncture because I started when it was pretty much illegal in most places, and now here we are having insurance pay for it. I'd say a good part of the population thought it was quackery when I started, and now people just swear by it and everyone knows what it is. So I don't have to really even explain it myself anymore, which is nice. Well, let's talk about the year of the ox.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Yeah, earlier we were talking about transitions and how knowing what the transition can mean for you and how it can impact your life is super relevant. Like you were saying, just being aware that it was the year of the monkey or the year of the pig.
A lot of what I've been learning about the year of the rat and moving to the year of the ox makes a lot of sense to some of the things that happened along the way to try to get those things going. So that's always reassuring. So I don't feel like, oh, this just isn't going fast enough because it doesn't have to. And so following the animals is a way of knowing how fast they're supposed to unfold or not. And this is a little story that will tell you a lot about the ox. So the way Chinese astrology is different because it's really based, first of all, it's based on a lunar calendar. So it's 12 exact lunar months rather than being based on a solar calendar. It's a little bit more politically correct to call it the Lunar New Year because if you say Chinese New Year, I mean, I learned Chinese acupuncture, but I also learned Vietnamese acupuncture and some Japanese, but
Oh, interesting.
my practice is more Chinese, so I feel it's authentic for me to say Chinese New Year, but it's really the Lunar New Year because the Vietnamese and the Koreans and the Japanese, like they all the East Asian people celebrate this in a big way.
That's good to know.
It's based on the lunar calendar. It's actually based on this folktale of the great emperor invited all the animals to come to some party. There's a definite order around the circle of the zodiac like there is in Western, but it's an animal order, and it's the order in which the animals showed up to the party. And the rat was the first one, and the ox was the second one. And so the rat was tired and just got a ride from the ox. So the ox took the rat all the way up to the door of the gates, and the rat, crafty little devil, jumped off. So he got in first, even though it was the ox that had like taken them there. And one of the things I love about that story is that even with that happening, the ox and the rat are friends, like good friends. So to me, that's showing that the ox must have some amount, and this, I haven't read this, this is what I'm just surmising myself. The ox had to have some amount of forgiveness to be able to like go, oh, well, that's just the rat. I don't care if I get in first. So that was how the order started. So it was the rat, and then it was the ox, and then it was the tiger. So one of the things that's really interesting about this year is last year was just so rough for so many people. And there are many things about the rat. It's like faster, it's clever, it's resourceful. And a lot of people had to be very resourceful last year. I know I did. I mean, people weren't working and they couldn't travel, and they got married, they had to figure out how to do that. Like a lot of innovative things in our daily lives happened last year because of the way we had to live. And even now that's still happening. And that cleverness and resourcefulness is very rat-like. Immediately last year when COVID hit, a lot of people in the Chinese medicine world and in Chinese astrology world were connecting it to how rats carry pestilence. Like rats have historically carried diseases, and from one country to another, hanging out on boats. And in a way, it really was fitting that last year was the year that we had the COVID hit. And this year is going to have the almost opposite energy. This year is a year of nothing too exciting happening, which is really okay with everybody right now, I think. And it's a year of like really hard working. And you just think of how the ox is just a steady, determined, can be a little stubborn maybe, slow moving animal, And so this year, and very honest, so like kind of opposite the rat in that way, like with a lot of integrity this year. The ox is also a farm animal, like a work animal, and had a relationship with the people, and so it's very cooperative. It's a very cooperative animal and very strong. So, and it likes to be with people. It doesn't like to be alone. This year is going to be a year of gatherings, but it's not going to be big parties like you'd expect. You'd think we'd all want to go to great big parties, but this year the ox energy is more small gatherings of good friends. Finally, we can go out to dinner. Okay, and I can finally have a party at my house. The year of the ox is really planning, and then when it's ready, it's not going to be jump ahead of the game like you might with the rat, and being methodical and being not slow like you're slow, but like
Attention.
you're careful, slow in a careful way.
Steady.
Yeah, steady and steady. So it's like that. And
Purposeful.
because of that, it takes a little bit more time for that energy to take hold in the year. And so we're still going to be seeing some of those rat-like things happening because the ox energy doesn't have, it's going to be a couple of months before it really takes hold. There's like the Native Americans have their different directions, and they have a circle of elements. In Chinese medicine, we do too, and we have 5. So, well, this is a metal ox year. And so, metal, the earth is associated with late summer, and metal is associated with fall because it's a metal year. So, the ox energy is going to have to work with the energy of the elemental year too, because a metal ox. Whereas if it had been a wood ox, maybe everything would have happened right now in the spring because the wood has a more creative and forward moving and uplifting energy, and its time is spring. But that's just good to know too, because as we're going, what's happening to all these ox things that are supposed to be going on for me? They're not happening. You can know that no, and that's the other thing about the ox. You just have to know, yes, it's going to unfold. It's definitely very strong. It's gonna happen.
So I have a question just to clarify. You said it's the year of the ox, but it's a metal ox in an earth year.
No, the ox is an earth animal. So the cycle of the elements goes around in a certain circle too. So it's you can like match it up like I.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, something that you had shared with us previously is kind of stuck out to me about this year. And I think it's true for a lot of this. This is an auspicious year, is what I heard from you, and things can come together, but
Right.
there's nothing that's going to be necessarily just handed to you. The ox is a work animal, and it's steady, it's methodical. So this could be this is a good year, and there's a lot that's available to you, but nothing's going to be handed to you. You have to work for it.
Yeah, but the thing is, when you have to work for it, it's also not like it's going to be, oh my God, I got to work for this. And it's going to be this natural thing that, like the ox just naturally does that. So even though you have to work for it, you don't have to really worry about it being like drudgery or overwhelming, because it's like you do the
Or desperate.
and then this will happen. Or desperate. I mean, last year was a year of desperation. The rat was just kind of like going crazy everywhere and being narcissistic, or whatever you want to call it. And this year is going to be a compassionate year. So this hard work is like with compassion.
I liked what you mentioned about that there's the energy for gathering this year, that I feel a lot of people have been so isolated and lonely.
It's a good year for it. So that's really nice coming out of last year, that we need that anyway, and that's what's going to be, that's what will happen. So that astrology, I think, has this thread of commonality between all cultures, but we just use it in different ways. And it's also a real way, I mean, it came out of times when we didn't have such knowledge of scientific things and mathematics, and in the Western world, astrology and astronomy were the same thing. Like in the time of Jesus, those guys were astronomers. You know, the wise men, they were astrologers, astronomers. So it was a way of seeing the world and putting it into a way that made sense to people.
Let's move forward.
Okay, so you are the year of the pig. So you have the hour of birth, the day of birth was the dog, and the month of birth was the goat again. So you're very goaty, very sheepy. And the pig is the main one. But the other one is that the first one, the year of the birth, is like um, your relationship to your ancestry and your family and like who you are in your environment. The month is like social behavior, the friends you like, kind of like out there in the world, kind of uh, how your energy is there. The day is like your inner personality, which is kind of like, in a way, the ascendant in the Western chart. The fourth one, the deep part of who you are, maybe where your spirituality. I kind of think of the pig sort of like a Pisces sort of animal in a way. They can be moody. They're happy, you know. You have sheep in two spaces there, Ashley. So that means you probably have some really strong sheep energy. And so sheep are they can be a little bit indecisive about things, you know, like you think about sheep, they're not out there in pasture deciding where they're going to go. They're just kind of need a little direction sometimes, maybe. I don't know if that's you or not. But they're real gentle and compassionate animals. And again, they're domestic, so they cooperate, they can be cooperative. So you might have both the struggles of being a sheep and the advantages of being a sheep coming up in your life more because you have it in two spaces. So, okay, well, let's move on. I'm going to stop sharing that one. Is that making sense? I feel like
Yeah. It's you got to look at all the different components of, you know, the different elements and the different animals and how the different phases of time
right.
impact things differently. That's pretty cool.
So you guys are very snaky. You have a fire snake. Oh, that's good. But the first thing that's really popping out to me is there's a lot of metal and there's a lot of fire. Because you have a water snake, but the snake is a fire animal. And then you have the snake in a fire element as well. The roosters are very practical, aside from being independent. They're really practical. They can be really controlling, and they like having a really tight schedule. So what's going to be interesting about a rooster in a metal year is metal is about structure. It's not about constraint. It's about structure, like you think of metal in buildings. It's like the metal is holding you upright physically and morally. So if you have a yin and then you have a rooster that likes to be a little bit controlling sometimes, that can be a good thing. It's just a personality trait to know about. And fire is it gets things going, you know, but you have to be careful about. What's nice is you have some water there, because fire can just kind of burn things out and dry them out too much. But you have this water there softening it. So right here we can see this connection. Like, I have this pig energy, so Ashley and I would have some things in common. And the horse, they like people, they're friendly, they're independent. They're kind of free-spirited and independent.
I just have a question in terms of, I feel like a lot of people associate dominantly the year that they were born with Chinese astrology. Me, I always highly associated and thought about the rooster as my year, but then later I learned that the day that you're born, that almost like encapsulates more of you than your year. Or
the year is kind of what you were born into and who your ancestors are and who you relate to and who you are in the grand scheme of who you are amongst you, what you were born into. Whereas the day would be like the essence of like your kernel of who you are, not necessarily, oh, my family was blah 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 and here I am. It's more like, no, but this part is me.
This has been awesome. Thank you so much for reviewing all of our charts, even your charts, comparing how the different hour, day, month, and year really does.
Yeah.
So you had also mentioned that, you know, you do the Chinese practice with your acupuncture, and now you got into the lunar different charts and things like that. Can you tell us a little bit about the course that you have coming up with Chinese medicine?
A medicine cabinet makeover. So it's going to be about how you can have holistic, mostly because I do Chinese medicine, Chinese herbs, but there will be some other things too. But how you can have these tools and these inexpensive, we call them patent remedies, they're just little pills, in your medicine cabinet so that when you have allergies, you don't have to reach for the Zyrtec. You can try this first. Or if you're catching a cold, you'll know how to put a cup on your back and like move it around in the right way to help relieve the tension and maybe prevent the cold from being so bad. And it'll be a 4-week class, an hour and a half each week. And the price is going to include, I'll send you a kit that's going to have these remedies, and it'll have a cup in it, and it'll have things that you're going to need, like there's a warming technique called moxibustion. That these things can be done at home, and they can either keep you out of the acupuncturist's office or the doctor's office, or they can be something you do so you don't have to make an emergency weekend visit. And I think at the end of the 4 weeks, people are going to feel really empowered to know how to use these medicines. And the first class is going to start on March 10th, Wednesday, March 10th. So it will go through March, the month of March. It'll end on the 30th. And so I'm my website is mysticriveracupuncture.com. So if you go there, there's a link, and that will take you to the place where you can sign up. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much. I always love it when people are interested in things I'm interested in.
Yeah. And thanks again for coming on a Hangout. And if anyone's watching, please feel free to subscribe to Calm One, Calm All so that you'll get notified when we have our Hangout next Monday. And as Kathleen mentioned, if you want to check out her website, mysticriveracupuncture.com, and you can learn more about her services and also her new medicine cabinet class. Thank you so much for joining us.
Love having Kathleen on. Learned a lot. And Marissa, tell us a little bit about what we have in store for next week.
Yeah, well, we have Cameron Momyer, and she is someone that I had the chance to partner with and work with a little bit. She does Reiki and intuitive healing work as well as just energy work. And she's going to really talk about the connection with energy and body and how working with energy and intuition can really heal the body.
All right. Looking forward to hanging out.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight, and I hope you have a good rest of your week.